Thank you for taking this opportunity to view the presentation and learn more about transitioning from high school to college for students with disabilities. The reason that accommodations and support services for students with disabilities change from high school to college begins with the law. In the United States, individuals with disabilities are entitled to a free public education from kindergarten through their senior year. The law that supports students with disabilities during that K-12 education is IDEA. It's an entitlement law that focuses on ensuring that a student successfully completes each year of school and ultimately graduates. Alternatively, college is not an entitlement. The laws that support students with disabilities in higher education is the Americans with Disabilities Act as amended and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. These are civil rights laws that focus on preventing discrimination on the basis of a disability and ensuring equitable access to services and programs provided by the college. Students must meet admissions criteria and all of the other qualifications that are required by other students seeking an education at that institution. Before we look more closely at changes in accommodations from high school to college, I want to mention another very important law. FERPA is a regulation that is intended to protect the privacy of students in higher education. As soon as an individual becomes a student of the school, all educational rights transfer to them. Even for students who are still 17, communication from the college will only take place with the student themselves. Students can elect to sign a FERPA waiver form designating another individual who can be provided with access to certain information of their choosing. However, it allows the college to communicate with that designee. It does not mandate them to. For our office, we always require that the student is the one leading conversations about their academics, and they're welcome to invite individuals of support to join meetings or phone calls if they so choose. When we are contacted by someone other than the student, we will share general information when we can, but our next step would be to follow up with the student directly to ask if they'd like to schedule a meeting and perhaps invite the person who reached out to join the conversation. So let's now move forward to discussing accommodations. At the K-12 level, as you can see here, the responsibility primarily falls on the school, beginning as early as identifying that a disability exists, all the way through case managers and teachers coordinating on behalf of the student to actually implement accommodations. Students have had many things done for them that they probably don't even realize is occurring behind the scenes. And again, at this stage of education, the goal is heavily focused on success. To guarantee that success, schools at the K-12 level can modify curriculum or waive it entirely under IDEA. At the college level, almost all of the responsibility falls on the student. The student must initiate the request for accommodations process and engage interactively throughout. At this level of education, waiving or modifying curriculum is very rarely done. Determining reasonable accommodations must be determined on a case-by-case and course-by-course basis. To recap the differences from the previous slides, at the high school level, if a student's disability makes a task harder, the school will implement an accommodation to make it easier or waive the requirement entirely. At the college level, the first thing we consider is, does the requested accommodation fundamentally alter a course objective? If it does, the accommodation is not approved, regardless of the disability or documentation. If it does not fundamentally alter a course objective, we will consider how significantly the disability impacts the task or requirement and explore if extra effort, support, or time would positively impact the student's ability to complete the task or requirement. If the disability significantly impairs completing the requirement and no amount of extra time studying, practicing, or getting extra help would improve that capability, an accommodation may be considered reasonable. So why do we do this? Colleges have accreditation standards that are set forth for them by various state and federal agencies. They make the determination on what is essential and what is required. If a standard has been set for the college by an accreditation agency, an accommodation cannot override that standard. So let's take a look at a common example. Two courses that many students take during their first semester in college are Speech 1100, which is a speech communication class, and English 1101, which is an English composition course. If we had, for example, a student with a diagnosis of a severe anxiety disorder, they may come to us and request an accommodation that allows them to be exempt from giving speeches or presentations. The first thing we would look at is what courses the student is enrolled in. We would take a look at the English 1101 course objectives and the Speech 1100 course objectives. In the English 1101 class, most of the focus is on making sure that a student is able to properly convey thoughts and ideas in writing. Therefore, if a part of that course was giving a speech or a presentation, it may be possible for us to approve an accommodation for the student to have an alternative assignment. However, in the Speech 1100 course, a fundamental course objective is that the individual is able to demonstrate their ability to give a speech or presentation to a group of adults. In that situation, we would not be able to provide an accommodation to exempt the individual from giving a speech or presentation. So for that particular semester, there may be an accommodation that the student is approved for one class, but denied for another class. I'd also like to take some time to talk a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing in high school and clarify some of the differences that a student will experience at the college level. First and foremost, accommodations are not retroactive. Students are expected to request accommodations and have an accommodation plan in place before their first day of classes. If a student waits and does not request accommodations until a couple weeks into the semester or not until their second semester, we can certainly assist them in implementing accommodations at that time, but there will not be any do-overs or retakes for anything that occurred academically prior to when the student meets with us. Also, accommodations are not intended to compensate for poor or underdeveloped skills, such as poor time management skills, lack of organization, students who have never had to do note-taking for themselves, or students who have not developed proper test-taking strategies. Just because a student didn't have to do something in high school does not mean that they are not capable of doing it. Furthermore, just because a student used a particular support in high school doesn't mean that that same support is going to be reasonable in another setting, such as college. Two common accommodations that we see that are approved at the high school level that are more likely to be denied at the college level are calculators and due date flexibility. We have many students who come in with documentation and diagnoses that are not fitting for these types of accommodations. When we sit down and meet with the student and we talk about what their disability is and what their needs are, we often find that students were provided with these accommodations at the high school level just to make the coursework easier for them, not necessarily because the student was not capable of meeting deadlines or doing mathematic calculations on their own. So based on the information from some of the previous slides, because we take a look at each individual course that a student is taking, we don't want students to come to us too early on in the process of getting enrolled at College of DuPage. We want to make sure that students have gone through the entire enrollment process up through and including registering for their classes before they request accommodations. And again, the reason for that is because we can't determine what accommodations a student is going to be approved for until we know which classes that student is going to be taking. Once a student requests accommodations through our website, they will be contacted by a specialist from our office to schedule an intake appointment. Students are welcome to bring an individual of support or several individuals of support to that meeting with them. And we typically conduct those face-to-face or through a Zoom call. At that meeting, accommodations will be reviewed and approved, and the student will receive an official letter of accommodation, which is sent to their DuPage email address. It's then the student's responsibility to forward that letter of accommodation on to each of their instructors at the start of the semester that they're approved for. Each semester, the student will submit a semester renewal to have their accommodations reviewed for the new set of classes. Most of the time, the semester renewal does not require that any additional documentation be submitted, nor does it require that any type of meeting takes place. However, if there is any type of concern with the accommodation that a student has previously been approved for and a new class that they're taking in this upcoming semester, a student will be contacted to schedule some time to sit down and talk. We'll take a look now at the ideal senior year timeline. When a student starts their senior year, we like to see them applying to the college sometime in September or prior to October 1st. For the 2024-2025 school year, financial aid has been impacted and delayed. However, resuming with the 2025-2026 school year, that will be back on track to open October 1st, making it helpful for students who have already applied to colleges prior to that open date. Between October and March, there is a lot of communication that is sent out to students about funding opportunities, scholarships, and different ways to start getting ready for finishing up their senior year and starting college the following fall. We like to see students checking to see if they need to take any placement tests, if they've met prerequisites for courses sometime between February and March, so that in March and early April, they can meet with an academic advisor to create an educational plan. In April, courses open up for registration for the fall semester. The sooner students register for classes, the more opportunity they will have to pick days, times, and teachers that are a good fit for them. For students who are going to be starting in a fall semester, we like to have them meeting with Access and Accommodations sometime in June or July. I'd like to wrap this presentation up with some recommendations from our office. First and foremost, it can be really helpful for students to self-disclose their disability to their academic advisor when they are creating an educational plan. This can help clarify for the academic advisor if there are considerations that need to be looked at as far as course load, pace of the courses that a student is taking, or if there's certain subjects that are more difficult for a student than others. We always recommend that students consider taking less classes their first semester. Oftentimes people misunderstand that they must be full-time students in order to qualify for financial aid. However, this is not the case, and we encourage students to talk to their financial aid representative to understand how many credit hours they need to take to be qualified. Our office also recommends avoiding taking late start or accelerated courses. The semester is 16-week long. However, there are some courses that will meet for only 12 or 8 weeks. What this means is that 16 weeks worth of material has been condensed into 12 or 8 weeks, making the pace of the course much, much quicker. This oftentimes is not a good fit for students with different types of disabilities. Another great way to get prepared for starting college is to take College 1115 over the summer before they start their fall courses. This is a course in college success skills. It meets certain requirements for the associate's degree, and it's a credit class, so a student starts out already having 2 credit hours under their belt when they start in the fall. It's a great way to understand resources that are available at the college, get used to coming to college level classes, and get comfortable with email and the different programs and platforms that the college use. We also caution students to carefully consider course format. Here at COD, we have courses that are offered in a variety of ways, including internet courses that are asynchronous, virtual class meeting courses that meet virtually but at a designated day and time each week, or traditional face-to-face classes. Some types of classes are a good fit for some students, while other classes are not a good fit for other students. So it's really important to pay attention to what type of course you're signing up for. Students should also pay close attention to refund and drop dates. During that first day of class, students will often get a syllabus that includes a course schedule and a lot of information about what is going to be expected from them in the course. It's very important that students look over this information to decide if that particular class and that particular teacher is going to be a good fit for them. Based on the refund and drop dates, students may have an opportunity to decide that a course or a teacher is not going to be a good fit for them and drop that course in time to get all of their money back and not have it negatively impact their transcript or their GPA. Ultimately, there may be times where a student finds that credit courses are not a good fit for them at all, or maybe not right now. Students can take a look at our continuing education classes to see if maybe there's some courses that can help them to build their skills, whether that be academically or socially, before potentially making another attempt at college level credit courses. I appreciate the time that you took today to review this presentation to better understand the differences between high school and college for students with disabilities who have used accommodation in the K-12 setting, and we look forward to working with your students in the future.